Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Cosmonarchy casts, and that means we're going to go into the next phase of our Tribunal stage. We do have a little bit of an unfortunate thing to report, which is that, as you can see here, Shopkeeper Dog did have to concede in his quarterfinal, so I Am the Wheat of God is moving into the semifinals match. He will face off against the winner of Doglived, a fellow ASKOSI player, and Kasuga, a Protoss player, who is going to be our first matchup in the quarterfinals. So after the first cast, after this very cast, we will know who's going to meet in the semifinals there alongside Wheat. Shopkeeper Dog could not end up making it happen. However, he did successfully make it so that the Shambler was not the top seed in the tournament and then bowed out. What a legend. Hopefully he will be back soon. On the lower side of the bracket here, or the other side of the bracket, it's all still a single elimination, of course. Quarterfinal number 2. Well, that's quarterfinal number 2, but we're going to call it quarterfinal number 2 in the overlay. Quarterfinal number 3 is Nebulime versus Top Ramen, Protoss versus Terran Action, a storied matchup in Cosmonarchy. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, we have another Protoss versus Terran matchup. Smarty Cakes' Protoss, making the upset over AOT, is going to face off against the Shambler. If everything goes according to seeding, we'll actually see a Nebulime and Shambler rematch in the semifinals, which is usually a grand final of way back when. So I'm interested in seeing how all of that comes together. But I am going to be seeing some action beforehand from our ASKOSI player here, the top-rated ASKOSI player in the server. It's Doglived, taking on Kasuga, who is also in chat. So I'm looking forward to seeing the Kasuga reactions to Kasuga playing. Let's get into it. Off in the top left of our first map here, it is Corrosion, and Doglived is our Delft Blue, Dark Sapphire. It was Dark Sapphire the whole time. Rainaril, ASKOSI player. Shout out Rainaril one time. Kasuga in the bottom right seems to be... I feel like this isn't orange, but it's also definitely not pumpkin. I'm going to say orange. It was orange. Sometimes you don't trust yourself, you know. It's going to be the orange Protoss going gateway into the function of Doglived. We'll see how that starts to take shape. I also think that, there it is, Kasuga in the chat. My feeling, I hate all ASKOSI players. So I don't know if that, tells us what's to come here, but I'm sure Doglived has some fun action planned. He was definitely the one who thought about the ASKOSI the most, bayed for them to be released. He was so happy when they finally showed up. He was our inaugural ASKOSI player in the Juggernaut match that he went 1v5 against. It was pretty outrageous. He obviously rocked up and participated in that during the Biddy Birthday Bash there. So Biddy Birthday Bash is a tibby tongue twister. I don't know. What would you say about that? Double function open versus Protoss makes some sense because you do want that armor pen from the Rove, for example. Kasuga going Gateway Lattice. I wonder if this is sort of like what you could consider a modified PVT opener, where you get like the one vassal to try to force anti-air. The trouble is that Roves can attack air, so I don't know if that's the best course of action versus a function opening ASKOSI. I should also mention that we don't really know how the ASKOSI matchups really navigate, at least not the Protoss one. The versus Zerg one has definitely seen some more general development, and it seems somewhat ASKOSI favored in the early game, but they can struggle once the Shroud comes out. So I'll be interested in seeing where we go from here in all of the ASKOSI matchups. Sadly, as you guys saw in that opening little sequence where I showed you guys the bracket, there will be no Zerg players making it deeper into the tournament. Our Zerg players AOT and Cannoli were defeated in their opening rounds. Now, Kasuga's Legionnaire is going to get in here and start tackling the Rove. It can't really do anything, even if you don't micro it, just because... Well, actually, it can win. It will win if you don't micro it, thinking about it. Hold on. You kind of want to do stuff like that where you really get away. And look at that. Jumps to a structure, starts up his healing process, and, of course, gets away from the issue. Also increases his speed for a short time when he does that jump. So that kind of makes sense. I think Doglived was trying to see if the healing of the Rove impact dissipation would cause any trouble in the process. Looks like we have Kasuga running home with his Legionnaire. He's got a Hierophant, double Manifold, a Legionnaire number 2 as well. I do feel like Hierophant with anything is going to help deal with Roves pretty nicely. You can micro back with it, but you almost don't want the Lattice units. Oh, Fast Golem. I mean, I guess they won't ever kill it, but they don't have any crowd control to proc the Golem shield passive, so I don't know if that's the best move there. Function number 3 on the way. I glossed over it, but the Gauntlet is on the way as well, and we have this little spot up here waiting for Kasuga to dare to brave the ramp. Meanwhile, our Protoss player does seem pretty hell-bent on just producing a lot of units off of 4 production structures. You know, on the one hand, lattice units are cheaper, but on the other hand, they train faster, so it's still the same effective amount of money that you're investing into your wartime spending as opposed to your economy. And he's going to try to charge forward, but as we see there, the rove count up to 9. Oh, he's actually going to pull the trigger, so this is a thing that the roves can do. They can kind of self-accelerate. Now, the attack speed increase does help out a little bit in this skirmish. Focus fire also coming out there for Kasuga. You see the manifolds starting to be picked apart initially instead of those hierophants, but there's no armor on the rove, so it almost doesn't really matter. Now, that focus fire absent there for just a moment does mean that the hierophant will likely go down without getting too much more in the form of security. He does scout gauntlet evidence. The intendant does require the gauntlet in order to be made. But I don't know if Kasuga knows that much about the race. And yeah, he also came in and saw that the landlock is indeed on the way. So, interesting stuff. Kasuga's a huge bank himself. Does look to plan a nexus here. Yeah, there we go. Starting to add some zealots in. I think ASKOSI have a hard time with Zealot Ecclesiast. It's funny because I was talking about how Kasuga looked like he was doing a modified PvT build or even PvP build where you're going to go for those manifolds for the armor pen. But you typically want the flexibility that you have versus Zerg where you can go for a more sustain-oriented compositions. Is Protoss just flatly sustain better in the middle of a fight than ASKOSI do? ASKOSI are meant to be like, we can do tricky harassment things, we can do tricky... you know, different angles here and there on a bunch of our units, mobility in the middle of a battle, and try to escape, take a hit and run, that kind of thing. It's less about the sustained combat that Protoss has as their, and they've kind of cornered the market on that. A couple of vassals coming in to see what they can do on the heckling. We don't have any static defense over here. Cypher on the way. This unlocks a couple more units out of the different production structures you can make, but most importantly, it will unlock the Tier 2 set of structures that you can make. And there's a lot more development for the ASKOSI still planned. In fact, their Tier 3 doesn't exist yet, and their Tier 2 is not fully implemented. They're missing 2 units that will be added in some short order. But they're not available for this tournament, and yet still, it seems like the ASKOSI game plan is somewhat showing up. Now, here is a really nice little move from Kasuga. Obviously, he's going to struggle to break down this army, and he's not really focus firing super well, but the vassals are putting Doglived's army on a bit of a timer, right? He's kind of like making sure that, okay, if you're going to move out, you're going to lose a couple of workers in the back line, and it looks like 2 or 3 workers did go down to those vassals, so it wasn't nothing. But it seems like Doglived's decision to just march across the map has changed what Kasuga's priorities are. I do feel like he's taking a wild attack. Grand Library only now coming in. Intendants are pretty good anti-armor. And the roves, you can see, Doglived's really in hot pursuit, trying to do those moving shots with them. Takes a little bit more micro than, for example, the Vulture. But the Intendants have that bounce and that anti-armor damage. So it's looking pretty nice to have a little bit of crowd control here. And we don't have really anything. It's only manifolds and a single Draken. And what's this about? Trying to use manifolds as the combat unit. Not exactly the best choice. While it does ignore the armor of the Intendant, it clearly doesn't pack enough of a punch on its own. And again, it looked like Kasuga wasn't exactly focus firing there. I think based on what I'm seeing in the production tab, he's actually going for an envoy for a storm drop, but that would make sense if his front gate wasn't about to be cracked open by a few ASKOSI units here and there. Pulling the scribes, they'll never kill roves, but they might be able to help break down the Intendants at the very least. Albeit with big worker deficit now. And this is something that Kasuga is going to have to come back with that storm drop if that is indeed what he's doing. Ardent Authority behind everything else, but he's only now making the Cantavis. This one feels like it's a wrap. It feels like our ASKOSI player is going to be able to close this one out somewhat comfortably. Behind it, he's adding the Proscenium for Tier 2 biotic production. Also adding a couple of Scepters and occasional other units, including an object here and there, try to like muscle through all of the Protoss lines. But I mean, there's not really that much here, you know, and even when those Drakenid step out to try to shove this off and save the Nexus, look at what it's costing him. Hasn't been able to make workers out of this bad boy for so long, and reinforcements swing on down, really closing the door on this base. No GG. Kasuga just leaves. And that, my friends, is a slightly salty Protoss losing to what felt like a very straightforward game plan out of Doglived. Let's see what happens in Game 2, because this matchup is not over. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Game 2 is now on your screens. Kasuga, the Sunglow? Beige Protoss. I wasn't sure what color that was, but I was thinking Sunglow because of the slight recolor on this tile set. And Doglived is Dark Sapphire again, of course. And he is ASKOSI, also of course. So bottom right versus bottom left. Gilded Wall is map number 2. This is Kasuga's map pick. Oh yeah, I actually have the vetoes pulled up somewhere that I can go ahead and take a look at here. Or I would, but then it says this content is no longer available because it was in my browser history. Yeah. Well, that's all right. I'll find it later. But what I can tell you is that that lattice plate wasn't the greatest versus the function-based moves. We did get some color from Kasuga in the chat where he said that because of the HP buff, he thought maybe they'd be a good spam unit. I don't think that's ever going to quite be true for the Manifold. It is definitely more of a supportive unit. Every time it attacks, it gives armor penetration in an aura, and it does stack with the number of Manifolds you have. So obviously, I mean, there's no unit that has like 30 armor, right? So are you really going to get much value from having 30 Manifolds? Not really. They are an okay mid-range unit, but they do get outscaled pretty quickly by other stuff. Love the gateway placement here. Very safe. And this is probably Jujik's worst nightmare because he just moved the mineral fields down on this map so that it wouldn't interrupt, the pathing stuff wouldn't be an issue. And now Protoss players are just building production closer to that spot to make it so that the rallies might automatically send them to the minerals. Whew, I don't know about that one. Now, 2 gateway into the rogue gallery is something that, honestly, Doglived back when he was playing Protoss definitely foresaw this sort of thing. And now, there's a couple of things that you can do against this as ASKOSI. First of all, you can make a proselyte. It's got an eyelet little ward that you can use to deploy and detect. It can also pull units to give them the relocation and the impact dissipation passive there. Very fast gauntlet over here for the build. And, you know, second function about 3/4 of the way completed before that gauntlet goes down. It's just a pretty straightforward thing. We also saw Doglived get the Arch, which is the ridge cap, fairly early. It helps too that you can kind of rush up to tier 2 pretty quickly, which means you can actually get your abutment, which is the gas, the geyser cap there. You can get access to that probably the quickest out of any race, besides obviously the Protoss, given that they don't have the tech requirement in the same way. They technically get access to it from the gateway, right? But the bottom line is that it's very, very easy. It's not as expensive as the Aquifer, so I don't know. It's interesting. Something that we'll have to see what the ASKOSI end up doing. Typically, their structures tend to be cheaper on minerals and gas, but more expensive in terms of time, and then you kind of make up some of that with the power building, or not. Depends on really your case-by-case situation. Now, the Beige Kabbalist moving across the map, targeting Doglived, and look at this. I wonder if there's an aspect to his lineup here that is deliberate anti-Kabbalist tech. One thing that is worth pointing out is that you can use the Kabbalist to jump to one of the units in the back, but you will decloak when you do that, and it's not like it one-shots the Rove either, so... oh, well, I guess that's pretty bad too. He's just going to slip right in. The collision, not quite what he was hoping for, but oh my god! The Pilgrim has 1 armor! Oh, you should have brought a Manifold. Oh... Oh god. Kabbalist Barguest required to one-shot workers. Holy shit. I bet nobody thought that was going to happen. I totally forgot about that breakpoint. Cypher coming out. So this is a bit of a faster tier 2 play here from Doglived, unless he just really wants, to go Intendant into Scepter. His first couple Intendants are coming. Now, the Kabbalist is sneaking back in. There's a lot of Legionnaires. Not so many other units here, you'll notice. And look at that. He actually boxed him in there with the units. Great micro. Puts down the landlock. Now, this one could be in some danger here. If these were mostly Zealots, I feel like Kasuga could just run over the army. But as it currently stands, this might still end up going okay for the Protoss. We'll keep those Roves selected. Need to see that focus fire, and it's kind of coming in. Honestly, the Hierophants tagging the Intendants ain't bad either, though. It's really weird, because you want to pick a target and stick with it. And it does feel like that ASKOSI army is struggling to make any ends meet here. The rush to tier 2 on top of going for that expansion may have cost Doglived a little bit of momentum that he otherwise really would have liked to hold on to. I think with these reinforcements coming, it might be a wrap already. And Kasuga using Ecclesiast, what are you going to do with those Pilgrims, buddy? You can't take them out. The Hierophants increasing the attack speed, all the workers running out. Doglived with a capital GG knows he's been bested by the Kasuga rush. And that means we are tied up a piece. Now, okay, so far, it's a little bit light on the analysis. I'm not seeing a lot of things that you know, besides stuff that gets solved pretty early on into matchups, right? You know, don't spam the manifold. And then, you know, when you're talking about the ASKOSI side, you got to watch out for that just, you know, more gateway-oriented rush. I think we're going to see a different opener from both players going into Game 3. And I guess we'll just start talking about it when it happens. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Game 3. It is Doglived versus Kasuga. Around and round we go. Protoss has tied us up after a very quick game, but I don't think this will be the same way. We're on Quasar Quartet. It is a 4-spawn map, and we are cross-spawn. It kind of tells me that we are going to be good to go when as it pertains to, you know, the jolly good times we can have on cross-spawn maps. I really don't think it's going to be a rush. Doglived, of course, Dark Sapphire once more, and Kasuga in the bottom left is just teal. Just standard old teal from Starcraft 1. Some of those colors occasionally show up just because it is random. Feels like with Doglived going for the function build again, he really wants to just stick to his guns there. The one alteration we've seen in Game 2 was him trying to do it a little bit faster. Interesting choice. 2 gateways. This is obviously the big change for Kasuga. He did just go for a more gateway-heavy build. I did like the cute little move where while he was waiting for function money, he power built a little bit. Why not? You know, you get like 1 or 2 seconds faster. Somebody will math that out and actually, you know, do it deliberately. That would be like a shopkeeper move. You know, shopkeeper did play a lot of ASKOSI, but he still signed up to this tournament as Terran and then just couldn't make it due to scheduling. I wonder what he will do in the future. Is he going to stick with Terran? Is that his true destiny? Hi, Doglived is in the chat. What's up? Somehow I missed him earlier. And Kiro, the driver, asks, has anyone counted the totality of all the units in Cosmonarchy? Well, I think on average it's about like 40-something, 48 or something like that per race. I say on average because technically I think all of the 3 original races have 50, but ASKOSI are kind of dragging down the average until I finish them up. So you're probably close to 200 if you're not counting factional stuff. If you are, then it's, I don't know, dude, 220 probably. A lot of units. And that's just the units, by the way. That's not the structures. Oh, I love this little micro dance that he's doing with the Rove, trying to keep the Pilgrim healed and taxing that Legionnaire. Unfortunately, was not orb blocking, so the Pilgrim will give his life, but I dig it. Oh, one more shot, too, and he would have denied the scout. The Radix is a pretty big deal here. I do got to say, it's really cool to see Doglived doing the jump to speed up the roves for hot pursuits. It's something that is super in line with their, you know, idea of what the rove is and what it could be. So thematically, it feels very appropriate. It looks like Ecclesiast Legionnaire is still going to be the main course of action for Kasuga. However, he has added in another Kabbalist. Looks like he just wants to, you know, incite a little violence, have a little bit of chaos here. Function number 3, no tech this time, no gauntlet. He's actually going with Cardinals for that healing. Wants to maybe get that sustained action before the Protoss hits a critical mass. Now, remember, Doglived himself has no idea where Kasuga is, except for maybe the fact that he doesn't know he's top left. But he seems to be trying to move towards the top left, thinking that that's where he is. Oh, he did the tech there for a moment. That's what he was just doing there. Now, he's definitely not going to be watching for the Kabbalist moving into his base here. Oh, well, he knows now, so he can definitely grab those units from the ramp. One worker going down. I guess if you don't come in with 2 Kabbalists, it's kind of pointless, comparatively. He actually just tried to attack there with that Cardinal. He's being heckled at the front. I don't think you want to... Yeah, that's a little bit rough. You don't really want to be losing your Cardinal that quickly. Now, thankfully, it seems like Kasuga's micro with the Kabbalist is not the best. So he got the 1 worker kill so far. He's caused a little bit of trouble. And look at that. He just right-clicks a unit for a second, and then you're done. You're done-zo, boy. So no hope there. Kasuga still needs to go back to the drawing board on that one. And now it looks like it's the ASKOSI's turn to defend once again. But this army doesn't look as deadly as before. I know we don't have the Intendants, but we don't really have that much with armor on the other side anyway. The Intendants themselves aren't going to help out too much. The Roves and the Cardinals are going to definitely be able to sustain through some of this action. We'll see if Kasuga wants to pull the trigger anytime soon. Nexus and Landlock for those expansions seem to be coming in at similar times, so that's pretty cool. Might end up getting that macro game we were hoping for after all. And a charlatan is on the way, but Kasuga's pulling the trigger beforehand, trying to get those Cardinals out, and they're doing their jobs, right? They're peeling for the ASKOSI Rove so that they can still keep that attacking going. Zealots are definitely rebuffing a lot of these attacks, though, it must be said. They're taking so damn long to finally bring down. The Roves really need to focus them. And there you have it. Now it looks like Kasuga's attack force has been broken back, and we will be having 3 Legionnaires a pop, a pylon, oh my god, and an embassy. So I'm guessing he's going to be switching it up. Maybe wants to go for a witness to see where his opponent is. Kasuga's usually very good at using witnesses, making a lot of them. I don't know how often he actually clicks on his witnesses to see what his opponents are doing, but he puts them in the right spot. He's got the instincts there. And I love this little trick here. You know, the Nexus ended up getting started at around the same time as the Landlock, so the Landlock should finish way later, but we do have that one extra worker power building it. Grand Library. Okay, it's going to be that storm drop again. That's what we saw the beginning motions of in Game 1 back on Corrosion. More missionaries coming in for a little bit of general DPS. I think it makes a lot of sense to fill missionaries in if your opponent is going for, like, Legionnaire Ecclesiast. I don't think that build will stay around for too long, but the reason why it's really good is because neither of those units have armor. And the Hierophant only has 1. The Dracodon, 2, Zealot, 3 until it loses shields, then it's 2. I mean, these are really hard units to try to deal with. Now, the Rove count is really high. We're talking almost 20 of them. And I do think it might be the same situation as Game 1, where Kasuga is teching up to try to get what he can get, and then he ends up just getting bowled over by the Rove count. And the sheer number of them is causing a lot of problems for what Kasuga is building. He's not going for crowd control early enough, it feels like. I don't think a Storm would help out too much here, and he's not even going to be going for that anyway. Went for the Rogue Gallery. The Kabbalist investment didn't pay off, wasn't able to get any eco damage, and once again an OGG is called, arriving right before the static defense comes in, and arriving before the tech. That's Doglived's ticket out of any defeats going forward, so long as he can avoid the gateway all-ins. Well, he posts up series point, and this is single elimination. Kasuga's got one more chance to keep extending his life forward. Will he go tit for tat and bring us to Game 5? Ladies and gentlemen, we have our series continuing. Kasuga is in the bottom right as the Glacial Protoss, and Doglived is in the top left as the Dark Sapphire ASKOSI. Apparently, I was given the replays in a bit of a funky order because evidently Gilded Wall was actually Game 1. So Kasuga started off the series owning with gateways, and then Corrosion was Doglived's adjustment. So the adjustment was don't rush to tier 2 too fast, basically. Don't go for, like, Gauntlet, Expand, Cypher, that sort of thing. That was the adjustment. I thought the adjustment was the other way around. So I just wanted to clarify. That's a little bit funky. That's okay. We just kind of roll with the punches. Oh!
Buff ASKOSI.
You know what? We need to teach that text-to-speech how to say ASKOSI. God, we thank you for $10 towards our tournament goal. We're funding for a 2v2 tournament. So if you want to support that, streamlabs.com/pronogo. If you want to support project development more generally, you can go ahead and donate on the coffee page. Pronogo in week 7 is the coffee page. All right, it's another 3-gate from Kasuga. This one's pretty standard as an opener versus Zerg. You hold back some of your units, you Zealot Ecclesiast all the way through. But Kasuga really likes the Legionnaire, at least as this first unit. I actually think it's fine to go like Legionnaire versus ASKOSI, right? I think it's fine to go like Legionnaire, Hierophant, and then Zealot Ecclesiast. You know, you want a little bit of something to deal with, like small Rove attacks coming in if they're going to try to do something cheeky in the early game. What's funny is that Doglived has kind of mostly just been building up an early force and then attacking with a ball that Kasuga's like trying to tech out of, but no, it's actually going to be a 4-gate. Okay. You know, I kind of favor this. I think this play should be fine, but I will note that he's like got downtime on the second gateway for some time. You know, like it's not the most. Listen, this to me looks more like it's a not gateway, not 4-gate. It's a 4-rage. You know, he's rage way. That's what he's doing. Gate rage. I don't know, something like that. We'll come up with a good name. This is Impulsion, by the way, a Biddy B map. Quasar Quartet also was. Corrosion also was. Gilded Wall, the only Jujuk map featured so far. I haven't read ahead of the replays that I was sent to see what Game 5 is, so if it is indeed, you know, admins will send me like a dud game if it's incomplete series, but I don't even know which map that is, so we'll have to find out together. It's not Main Street, I know that much. Now, we have the Ecclesiasts, the Legionnaires, as opposed to Zealots, and a second Hierophant. I think 2 Hierophants is fine. You stack up the passive pretty well on focus-fired targets. You can also, you know, that gives you attack speed when the unit dies. If it's a tanky unit, which doesn't really apply in the ASKOSI case, it also reduces their attack speed. But typically what you're doing with that is just trying to focus it down so you get that benefit. He's going for a 3rd Hyro. I really think he should just be making Zealots. I know he's got a lot of gas, but, you know, you can adjust that too. You can just pull him off and go for a Nexus or something, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see, because, you know, he made it work on Gilded Wall in what was Game 2 for us, but Game 1 for the players. So I feel like that'll be fine. But it is just triple function, and the Cardinals have been soaking up a lot of damage and also healing when they attack any unit around them, including themselves. So that helps out as well in these longer fights. And if the Roves just kind of mulch through the Legionnaires, then you don't really have much to protect the backline, because they also don't have a lot of... It's not like they have enough armor to riposte the Roves. And it's also not like they have enough mobility to escape without, I guess, maybe the Hierophant, but Doglived's already shown that he can do the hot pursuit move. The need for speed is with them. We haven't been able to really sink our teeth into a proper, like, you know, 20-minute long macro game or anything, so I'm hoping that Impulsion can deliver for us in that respect. This is a 2-spawn map, so the players know where each other are. Expansions on both sides. Kasuga's is a little bit later, off of 4 gateways, too, so you suspect he has the bigger army, the better army. Maybe not bigger because he's Protoss, but better because he's Protoss. But again, it's a lot of Legionnaires. It really is a lot of Legionnaires. And going for Embassy behind it. I mean, going for a drop here wouldn't suck if that's what he's going to be doing. I suspect he's going to do like Pylon Grand Library again. And he'll just set up a little bit of a containment for Doglived to try to break. And see the Legionnaires are being hunted. Now the Ecclesias get in the face. Immediately goes for that attack speed buff, which is working out quite nicely for him thanks to all his Hyros. Frontline starting to melt here for Doglived. He needs to cycle back with only 11 Roves left in the pocket. The Cardinal, well, he's got a couple of them still. All the Ecclesias have gone down, so it should be pretty easy now. Oh, one of them was on a follow order. That's a little bit awkward. Should be pretty easy now for the Roves to just deal with all those Legionnaires. Yeah, this is looking like it's a little bit too easy for Doglived's unit comp, right? Kasuga's still opting into those short-range fights. Hierophants are giving the attack speed initially, but when the Ecclesias can't keep the Legionnaires alive, then all of a sudden there's not enough damage to actually deal with the Roves. So you do need to be able to focus fire them, and you do need to be able to stop them from just kind of bypassing the incoming front line like this. And it only takes one, because then they can all jump to him. We're kind of seeing that as we speak. Now, the Legionnaires are coming out. They are attack speed increased for just a moment. This might still be able to be riposted, but I'm not so sure, because, again, the focus fire is not exactly there with only a few Legionnaires. He's got 4 more coming, but this is just too many units out of Doglived. Looks like Kasuga needs a little bit more time practicing versus the ASKOSI, making him look OP. Maybe they are. Maybe they do need to be nerfed instead of buffed. Now, Doglived has definitely played this pretty well. Obviously, I say this as he's got 1,300 minerals. So, you know, his APM's high, though. His APM is definitely high. Maybe the Roves can go after the Envoys. Now, it looks like that might be enough for the Legionnaires to clear out the Roves, but he's lost all of his workers, and there's more reinforcements coming in as well. Again, no GG is called. Kasu no GG. And that will be Doglived. Wow, moving forward. I mean, even that game didn't necessarily even feel like a series point exactly. There's very open and shut case here where the adaptations weren't quite there, especially knowing the context that Gilded Wall was actually Game 1. It's like Kasuga walked in, won Game 1 in 5 minutes, and then spent the rest of the series not quite able to figure out what comes next. What is the next point of development? Doglived moves on to face I Am the Weed of God, which means we will be seeing ASKOSI versus ASKOSI, where both ASKOSI is both weak and also strong. OP and also, please, buff. So, thanks for watching this series of Cosmonarchy featuring the new race. Is it OP? Post your comment.